Testing, testing, testing. Excuse me. All right. Hello, everybody. We're just waiting for Envy, and then we will get started. All right, looks like we've got time for a Minesweeper game. So let's see how much we can do with the time allotted us. Well then, already got kind of a problem here, huh? Sure, whatever. Let's just guess. Make that guess. So I got to keep playing. Uh-oh. I think I'm at a forced guess again. That's a little unfortunate. Let's go here. Sure. Well, that didn't help very much. Oh wait, no. Hold on. Helped a little bit more than I thought, but still not that much. So there's one here somewhere. Jesus Christ. Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I got got very surprised for a second.
Yeah, you did. I surprised you.
Yeah, I'm very easily startled. Um anyway, uh this Minesweeper game is hopeless. So, let's just make a guess. Yep, there we go.
While I was making stuff in the oven,
Mm.
I prank called my fucking work
Oh geez.
because I fucking just got off and I was just like, and I saw that and I remembered because he one of the guys told me, he was like, he was like, he fucking was joking around, he was like, I called you, and like, so I was like, oh yeah, he did, and I was like, so called back, and I was like, I just put on a fucking voice, and I was like, it's bullshitting in a few minutes. It's a good bit.
All right. So, um continuing where we left off from last stream. Um last stream we covered
But
literally like I don't know, like not even a full section because we were leaving off from from a
yeah,
from a previous reading, but um how to even summarize. Um we were talking about the conception uh of deities as being fears, so called. Um and what that really means, and I remember being a little bit confused. um I remember, like, there was a little bit of talk about like what it meant for. Right. So there's the fears, and then there's also the charms uh that ward off the fears, uh and prevent them from like attaching to people, I guess, or to subjects or to whatever. And I remember being confused because I wanted an example of, you know, well, what's an example of a fear? What's an example of a charm? How do they interact? Um, and it seems like that's what the next section is going to be a little bit about. But
yes, it is.
so yeah. Um, but yeah. And I believe we completed the the like the conditions of deities. But I'm gonna reread the last paragraph, and then we shall see um what the next one has in store. So, by reformulating the metamorphosis of these invisible entities in my own inadequate language, I neither claim to have understood ethnopsychiatry nor to have theorized it. Naturally, I was only interested in myself, or rather in those unfortunate whites who are always being deprived of their anthropology by being locked into the modern destiny of anti fetishism. But its very artifice, the ethnopsychiatric treatment session, or by its very artifice, the ethnopsychiatric treatment session recreates laboratory conditions conducive to detecting invisible entities among us in the suburbs of Paris. This was another thing that he was really trying to emphasize was the idea of um, artifice, almost paradoxically getting you closer to something real rather than further away. Um, and in the same sense that like a laboratory is a very artificial setting, but in creating this very artificial setting, you are allowing, I guess, the deities, the facts, whatever, to make talk, to speak for themselves, to go beyond you, etc. Excuse me, I have to spilled water all over myself. That was silly of me.
You're all good.
Mm. All right. Time after time, it exposes clever therapeutic gestures and well fabricated objects that seem to escape speech, but whose discourse, on the contrary, seems open to precise description as long as we draw up the list of specifications of the entities mobilized, along with the optimization conditions of their involvement in action. All I have done is choose the terms with care so that they might pass from one end to the other of the ancient Great Divide. And sweeping aside one kind of phenomenon that neither objectless psychology nor subjectless epistemology seemed capable of accommodating. And the Great Divide is the divide of object subject, fact fetish, nature, nature culture slash nature society. Uh, these kinds of divides are what he's talking about. Um, I am interested only in the question that this reformulation allows me to raise, now that we have a broader and more symmetrical comparative base to draw on. Since they have no more psychology than anyone else, what are the whites' divinities? What invisibles are indispensable to the temporary and fragile construction of their envelopes and their quasi subjects? How do they go about deflecting fears and transferring them elsewhere? By what charms, what tricks, and what mechanisms? Who are their ethnopsychiatrists? Um, and something I was thinking about is is the idea of invisibles a a comparison, um or like drawing a parallel between the deities and like unobservables in like physics, for example, because this is something that scientific like traditional scientific realist debates often uh speak on, is the idea of unobservables and like what position they should have in our ontology. So like somebody who so like the constructive empiricist position might be that unless something can be observed by the unaided senses, then um it's not properly real. It would be a useful fiction of some kind, or it's indispensable in some sense to our models, but isn't like something we're justified in believing in. Whereas the scientific realist is fine to say that, you know, unobservable is that can be postulated and its effects observed is something we're justified in believing in. And to be clear, this would be things like protons, electrons, things that you're not actually able to see them. Um, yeah, is this like a deliberate parallel between these two things, or am I reaching here?
There probably is.
Mhm.
Um, there there probably is. I'm not gonna say for certain there 100% is, but it would make sense, especially not only that, but also because uh Latour kind of uses physics as one of those examples, as
Okay.
like one of those. It doesn't come up a lot, but he'll he talked about Einstein's I've talked about it before. A reference mollusk is a thing, and it's a really really interesting thing. So I would not be surprised if he's using it in that sense.
Okay. Um. Anyway, continuing on. So we now reach the actual section we're going to be covering: how to understand an action that has been overtaken by events. Why does Mafalda's father, in the last scene of this short comic strip, Figure 7, appear so terrified that he uses scissors to shred compulsively all the cigarettes remaining in his pack? And then this goes to a footnote. Um, Great, my computer restarted and now I lost the place of the footnotes. 70, 70, 70, 70. This section is adapted from Fractures from the concept of a network to that of attachment. Interesting. Uh, Oops. Sorry. Let me zoom in. Fractures from the concept of network to that of attachment. Is this another work by Latour? Because it's not attributed to anybody else.
We can. I think I actually did look this up before. Um, fractures.
Seems like the kind of
Yes, it
yeah. It
is.
seems
Yes, it is. It is something by Latour.
it absolutely seems like the kind of kind of title he would give something. So there's that. But in any case, but yes. So what are you doing? She asks in the first scene. Yeah. So there's the guy. He's smoking. It's like, what are you doing? As you can see, I'm smoking, responds her father unwaringly. Oh, Mafalda remarks in passing. I thought the cigarette was smoking you. Um, it says, oh, no por nada means no, and then I thought the cigarette was smoking you, and then this gives way to panic. Whereas he thought of himself as an untroubled father, or rather comfortably seated in his armchair after a hard day at the office, his daughter saw him as an unbearable monster, a cigarette grabbing a man to have itself smoked in a big cloud of tar and nicotine. The father has an appendage, an instrument, an extension of the cigarette. No, this rather the father as an appendage, an instrument, an extension of the cigarette. The father become the father becomes cigarette to the cigarette. Become? The father become. I'm just saying
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be becomes
yes. The father
cigarette to the
becomes
cigarette.
cigarette to the cigarette. Nothing more is needed to unleash a crisis. I forswear smoking forevermore. To bind me to this promise, I reduce my entire pack to unsmokable stumps. I tear apart this idol that has enslaved me into such minute fragments that it will never again be able to take hold of me, even if the craving, as we say, seizes me again. Mafalda's amusing story has only the appearance of profundity. Moving from the first to the last scene, we basically pass from one extreme to another. At the start, the father believes himself given to an innocent vice that he has almost completely under control. At the end, he can extricate himself from his shackles only by pulverizing the cigarettes, which so totally controls him that his daughter thought she had seen in this hybrid, a cigarette smoking a man. In the two instances, both at the beginning and at the end, the reader continues to believe that we are talking about control. From the active form, I smoke a cigarette, to the passive form, you are smoked by a cigarette. Nothing has changed other than the apportionment of master and instrument. Hmm. The father alternates too drastically from one position to the other, too comfortable in the first image, too panicked in the last. What if the question rested instead on the absence of mastery, on the incapacity, either in the active or passive form, to define our attachments? How can we speak with precision of what the Greeks call the middle voice, the verb form that is neither active nor passive? And that goes to 71. Um, the active and middle voice in the verb in Problems of General Linguistics by Emile Benveniste. Benveniste. The expression of middle is a later rationalization once the active and passive had become evident. In this brief and critical chapter, Benveniste cast the middle as ancestral to the passive form. This more ancient opposition distinguishes it from the active. Quote, one can diversify at will the play of these oppositions. They always finally come down to situating positions of the subject with respect to the process, according to whether it is exterior or interior to it, and to qualifying it as agent, depending on whether it affects in the active or whether it affects while being affected in the middle. Okay, I'm going to reread that because I do not think I got that. The expression of middle is a later rationalization once the active and passive had become evident. The active and passive voices, I'm guessing. In this brief
Yes.
in this brief and critical chapter, Benveniste cast the middle as ancestral to the passive form, so pre-existing it.
Yes.
This more ancient opposition distinguishes it from the active. One can diversify at will the play of these oppositions. They always finally come down to situating positions of the subject with respect to the process according to whether it is exterior or interior to it, and to qualifying it as agent depending on whether it affects in the active or whether it affects while being affected in the middle. Interesting. So the idea here being that the passive is a later invention, um,
Yeah.
but that the middle voice is the affecting while being affected. Um,
Yeah.
okay, that makes sense because it seems like that's what Latour is driving at very much. So,
Yeah.
is the idea of affect affecting while being affected. Um, yeah. So how can we speak with precisions of what Greeks call the middle voice, the verb form that is neither active nor passive? The construal factish authorizes us to not take too seriously the ways in which subjects and objects are conventionally conjoined. Excuse me. That which sets into action never has the power of causation, whether it be a master subject or a causal object. That which sets into action never has the power of causation, um, whether it be a master subject or a causal object. Oh, under the construal of factish, he means.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. The construal factish authorizes us to not take too seriously the ways in which subjects and objects are conventionally conjoined. That which sets into action never has the power of causation, whether it be a master subject or a causal object. That which is set into action never fails to transform the action, giving rise neither to the objectified tool nor to the reified subject. To think in terms of factish requires some getting used to, but once the initial surprise at such an outlandish form passes, one begins to regard those obsolete figures of object and subject, the made and maker, the acted upon and the actor, as more and more improbable. Okay, interesting. So what he wants to say is that that which is set into action never fails to transform the action, giving rise neither to objectified tool nor to so that which sets into action never has the power of causation. So I guess this would be like, yeah. So in this, it doesn't have the power of causation in the sense that what they set into action always has. Oh shoot! I never minused out the thing. But yeah, what they set into motion might in fact be beyond them in some sense. The concept, the construction gets out of hand uh, in some way. Um, so like the causal power is not entirely with them, nor is it entirely with the object, and the object doesn't um the object like immediately transforms the actions, uh but doesn't uh isn't objectified, or nor is it like reifying a subject, that being like reifying the subject in what sense? Let me think that through. Yes, sorry. That which is set into action never fails to transform the action, giving rise neither to the objectified tool, so it doesn't um yeah, it doesn't like vest all the power with itself, nor to the reified subject. So yeah, so the object pole and the subject pole, I guess. So like
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, so the objectified tool would be, the power is with the object versus the reified subject, which is the power is all in the subject, all in
Yeah.
the person. Okay. Okay, I think I get it.
The object is the real thing. No, the subject is actually the real thing.
Hmm.
Latour said it's neither.
Hmm. To think in terms of factors, yeah. So, yes, 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 yes. All makes sense. Let me actually highlight that to make sure I can remember. The object and subject pole. The power is with neither. Yep. Okay. Our vignette illustrates well their complete irrelevance. Contrary to what Mafalda expresses in the fifth frame, the cigarette does not smoke her father, but without doubt it is making the father smoke. This or fei, or made to do, is so difficult to grasp that Mafalda's father thinks he escapes it by the two traditional routes. At the beginning, by thinking he is capable of controlling his action, he acts and the cigarette does nothing. At the end, by thinking that he is completely controlled by the object, the cigarette acts and he does nothing. These two idioms, that of liberty and that of alienation, blinds us to the strange positioning of factishes, capable of making one do things that no one, neither you nor they, can control. How does one become detoxified of this drug, mastery? What a surprising and almost contradictory question. How does one emancipate oneself of the hard drug of emancipation? At this point, we need not be intimidated by the great battle between reactionaries and progressives. Hold on. Anyway, At this point, we need not be intimidated by the great battle between reactionaries and progressives. The former are categorically mistaken because they believe, on the pretext that detachment is not possible, that one must forever remain within the same attachments. A too convenient complacency that well justifies the indignation felt against those who want to leave the enslaved chained to masters of the past. A too convenient complacency that well justifies the indignation felt against those who want to leave the enslaved chained to masters of the past. A sufficient incitement to do battle against the injustice of fate and domination. Nonetheless, when the reactionaries mock the progressives by asserting that the liberation of the enslaved amounts to, quote, changing the chains or the masters, unquote, the emancipators' indignation at these defeatist propositions is to be yeah, sorry. The emancipators' indignation at these defeatist propositions is to be faulted. Technically, the reactionaries are right, and the progressives are wrong. When eulogizing liberty, the progressives forgot to specify for those newly freed of their quote unquote bad ties the nature of the new ties with which henceforth they will be made to exist, the beings that will alienate the beings that will alienate them better. In speaking of liberty as an asymmetrical term designating only the chains of the past without referring to the bonds of the future, the progressives commit an error as flagrant as that of their ostensive opponents. Who is the sure assassin? The one who refuses to free the alienated from his mortified ties, given the absolute liberty is a myth, or given that absolute liberty is a myth, or the one who claims to de-alienate for good the subject, finally fully autonomous and master of himself, but without giving him the means to re-establish ties to those who are in a position to act upon him. Just a few years ago, the answer would have been easy, the first, without contest. Hold on. So, who is the sure assassin? The one who refuses to free the alienated. Yes. Okay. So, yeah, so he's saying just a few years ago, the answer would have been easy, the first without context. The first being the one who refuses to free the alienated from his mortifying ties, given that absolute liberty is a myth.
Which
So
would
this would
which
be
would be the conservatives.
yes, that would be the conservatives. Yes, yes, or the one who claims to yes. Okay, yes. Today, I admit without shame that I hesitate because my indignation requires that I now fight on two fronts against the reactionaries and the progressives, the anti moderns and the moderns. And this goes to footnote 72. Uh, C. Pierre uh, Legendre. Yes. La question dogmatique en Occident. I don't know. The new influence by Legendre can be explained, from my perspective, by this reversal. Suddenly, before our eyes, sometimes in our children, we have these emancipated beings, a state only aspired to or feared by preceding generations, who would never have become detached, so firmly did the chains of the past hold them. The experiment is now complete. As Legendre affirms with prophetic violence, quote, you, the fathers, you have given birth to the living dead, unquote. His solution, derived more from Lacan than from Roman law, unfortunately amounts to foregoing attachments in order to impose upon subjects a sovereign power defined by void alone, making disappear even more radically the multiple sources of uh, phase. Is this what the
Yeah.
I don't remember what the fairs Faires with a hyphen in the middle. Um,
I look it up. Uh, it's probably like to do.
Okay.
Fair apparently means like to do, to make.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
Yeah.
uh,
It's the
what is it?
same fair as in laissez-faire, uh, which is interesting.
Uh, yeah, I think, yeah, because I think laissez,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's like, yeah, okay, it's literally on this page. It means like let do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Okay.
let do, laissez-faire.
Yes. Yes. I am only interested and reassured by those who speak in terms of substituting one set of ties by another, and who, when they claim to unmake morbid ties, show me the new salutary ties, and this without ever looking to the subject as master of himself, now without an object. Okay. I'm going to keep reading. The terms liberation, emancipation, laissez-faire, laissez-passer must no longer assume automatic adherence by the quote men and women of progress unquote. Preceding the flag of liberty.
Laissez, laissez-faire, laissez-passer, passer means let do, let pass.
I see.
Yeah.
So these terms must no longer assume automatic adherence by the men and women of progress. Preceding the flag of liberty, forever raised to guide the people, we would be well advised to carefully discriminate among the attaching things themselves, those that will procure good and durable ties. From now on, the adherents of factices, those adhered to and authorized by factices, will refuse to equate, with Pavlovian reflex, emancipation with the highest good. Liberty is not an ideal, but a heritage to be sorted out. Hmm. Okay. Will refuse to. Okay. So it will. They will refuse to equate emancipation with the highest good. Liberty is not an ideal, but a heritage to be sorted out. What does he mean by heritage here?
Um, he's just kind of I guess the simplest way, but he's just giving a history to these things.
Okay.
You want these things don't just like happen, and they also don't just stop happening.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they like other things need to happen. It's the thing.
So.
It's like he says, your ties need to be replaced. You always
Mm-hmm.
replace old ties with new ties. When you're saying you're breaking the chains of the past, necessarily setting up, you might not want to call them ties. I'm chains, but you can certainly call them ties. You are still tied to something, even
Mm-hmm.
if that thing is a better.
Okay. So I think I can get that, but hmm. I think the issue I'm running into is like what happens if a given tie is just I worry is like what I worry about here is that um we end up in a situation where we kind of concretize the function of a given tie as then needing some kind of replacement that serves the same function. And it could be that the function it's
It doesn't need the same function. It just needs to be a new tie. That's all.
okay.
That's all. You can't replace anything when you can't really just get rid of something. Um, it like for instance, what would it mean to like get rid of capitalism? Like simply just get rid of it,
Mhm.
nothing else. That doesn't really mean anything.
Well,
You
yeah,
are
because
replacing it with a different situation. Um, or even like simply, um, when you get rid of a machine, your factory, or whatever, or your house, your home, you could just use any example.
Mm-hmm. So
Replacing it with another situation, it's not like you aren't like freed of your situation. You aren't freed of like a situation now. You just have a new one.
well,
You just don't
sure.
have.
So, but here's maybe like a different example, right? So something like race is an example, right?
Mhm.
Like I I I think it makes sense to talk about the abolition of race without needing to state what it is I want to replace race with, because I don't think that, like, I would say that, obviously I would say that there are better ways to bind people together than by race. But like that doesn't mean that I want like a direct replacement with race. Like I would rather that we just not have the concept of race, or a concept that even really approaches something like race, that divides people based on perceived essential characteristics, right? Like I understand, like, in the abstract, that you can't just say, the all of these things that you believe in, they're all wrong, and I'm not going to give you anything else to believe in at all, and good luck, right? But at the same time, I think this language worries me a little bit, because it kind of it's in danger of of making the functions themselves things that need to be fulfilled, right? Like,
You
this. Mhm.
you are giving them new language though.
Okay.
I mean, wouldn't you think so? When you're talking about the abolition of race, I assume you're not just saying. I assume when you're saying that, you're not just saying like in passing. You're just talking about, oh yeah, we should just abolish race, and like that's like it. I assume you're talking about like making a sort of argument, and in that you will get language, and that is kind of Latour's point,
Hmm.
is that the theorists in which he is talking about, like theorists here,
Hmm.
the when some progressives talk about simply how we are free now, they they like kind of deny other things, because we've gotten rid of some things, but we also have obviously replaced a lot of it with other things, and whether that be like better or worse, like I guess that maybe depends on the thing. I'm not really sure, but or how you look at it, I guess. But I assume quite a bit of it is at least hopefully a little bit, but I hope a good amount of it's a little bit better.
Yeah,
I
I
haven't
mean,
I haven't thought about that too much, but
maybe it's just about the
yeah,
language, where, like, because I feel like the language of abolition is effective when we are talking about something that doesn't have like an easy corollary thing that we would want to say is the replacement for it, right? So like when we talk about capitalism, it's one thing to say abolish capitalism, but now what, right? And that's why you say, well, the tie that I want to replace it with is communism, the direct association of the producers, whatever, right? That's so that's one thing. Um, but when like when I say we need to abolish race, abolish gender, like I like what I want to abolish there is like the relationship of domination that exists, and like concretizes these social forms, and I don't want them to be replaced by anything, because I think their absence is the goal. Like I think that their absence is in fact precluding a lot of other ties that could be made that aren't being made. But I don't know in advance which ties uh people are going to start making once the old ones are gone, right? Like I don't know exactly what a post-gender society will look like. All I know is that there are ways of associating that are currently blocked off to me as a result of my gender, as a result of my perceived sex, as a result of my race, etc. Um, I shouldn't say it
Don't you
was a
think
result.
that's a?
Hmm?
Did you think that's exactly what Latour's talking about, though? By that,
Maybe,
because
but it's like
what you're I don't I guess I don't really see an issue in what you're saying and what Latour's saying.
well the issue.
Speaking, you are speaking in terms of substituting one set of ties for another, and I think just in that you
Mhm.
kind of showed me, um, kind of indirectly a little bit what new ties you want. You don't have to like. You don't have to like. I'm not sure Latour necessarily needs you to um like have it like all sorted out.
Mhm.
I don't get that from everything I've read of Latour. I don't get that impression from him.
Okay.
But I think what he means is that you simply one of the big things is simply just talking about it. That you aren't just because obviously there is a replacement, even if we don't know immediately what that will be, or even if we talk about it and we say it like, oh well, this will be how the new thing works, and it actually isn't how it works. You know, maybe we're just wrong. That could also
Mhm.
be possible, but like, it's just about right now he is mostly just I'm pretty sure talking about people who speak how you talk about things. He is not really talking about like what you like accuracy or
Mhm.
um something like that.
Okay. Give me a second to think. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Okay. I think rereading this last sentence, I think I get it now. Um, because it says we will refuse to equate with Pavlovian reflex emancipation with the highest good. It's not
Yeah,
saying emancipation is never good, but that we can't equate it reflexively, automatically with the highest good. And then that
yeah,
would make sense with liberty is not an ideal, but a heritage to be sorted out. So it's like it's not a like it there might be things to which we might want from which we might want to be emancipated, but we can't just assume by virtue of it being an emancipation that it is necessarily good. Um, am I getting that correct?
yeah. I think so.
Okay.
Uh, maybe it's simply that one needs a stone in
Hmm.
order not to become cold and hard like a stone.
Hmm. Right. Despite his iconoclastic gesture, Mafalda's father does not succeed by quote unquote deconstructing his pack of cigarettes in obtaining his autonomy. He succeeded only in passing from an extreme innocence to an extreme panic by way of 4 stages. He believed himself to be free. He becomes a slave in the eyes of his daughter. He panics. He liberates himself by breaking his chains. Basically, however, he has only shifted from one belief in his liberty with cigarette to another belief in his liberty without. How would he have responded to the barbs of the pestering Mafalda if he had lived in the domain of factitious? In understanding the passive form, you are smoked by your cigarette, as an accurate approximation of the middle voice, he would have responded in the middle voice. Yes, Mafalda, my daughter, I am effectively held by my cigarette, which makes me smoke it. There is nothing in this resembling a determining action, neither for it nor for me. I do not control it any more than it controls me. I am attached to it, and if I cannot hope for any kind of emancipation from it, then perhaps other attachments will come to substitute for this one, on condition that I don't panic and that you do not impose upon me, as a good critical sociologist of the left or a moralist of the right would, an ideal of detachment from which I would surely perish. It would make for a really bad comic, but sure. uh, let me look at the footnote this goes to. 73. The concept of affordance is so powerful because it permits the deployment of the middle voice in psychology. See Bruno Latour reassembling the social. Uh, do you want to expand on that? The idea of affordance?
Uh, he's probably um what he's uh what I kind of wanted to say, but I'd forget if it comes up
Mhm,
is um it's the second thing. Action is overtaken. We never know um uh, who is acting. It's
mhm,
it's it's action is uncertain. But he literally, I forget if he said it yet. He'll literally call action another term for factitious
hmm,
because it, yeah.
okay.
I'm not exactly sure what that's referring to because I don't remember the use of affordances in it.
Mhm,
He might actually, you know what he might actually be doing. I saw that he referenced the Navant. He might actually be it might actually be something that he kind of partially responded to or went on from in reassembling the social, but it wasn't like he didn't use the same terms.
okay.
Because at the Avant comes up quite a bit in it. Let's see.
Mhm,
Affordances. All right, affordance. I can just look at affordance. This is why the notion of affordance introduced in James G. Gibson, the ecological approach to visible perception, has been found so useful. The multiplicity of modes of action when dealing with technology, hard and soft, is marvelously followed by. Or actually, let me look at the footnote. Where's the footnote from? 83. Uh, this, of course, does not mean that participants determine the actions, that baskets cause the fetching of precisions, or that hammers impose the hitting of the nail. Such a reversal in the direction of influence would be simply a way to transform objects into causes whose effects be transferred through human action now, limited to a trail of mere intermediaries. Rather, it means that there might exist many metaphysical shades between full causality and sheer inexistence. In addition to determining and serving as a backdrop for human action, things might authorize, allow, afford, encourage, permit, suggest, influence, block, render possible, forbid, and so on. So yes, it is sorry, it's not the second uncertainty, it's the third. Action is overtaken. You never know, as it says. It's not about reversing where the action comes from. It's about it's about
mhm.
not really from the outset
Okay.
saying where it comes from.
So
We don't know where it
affordance
comes
then
from.
is like it's a less strict kind of thing. It's like a how do I explain this? It's a way of saying that something makes something possible without saying that it has the direct causal power in the relationship.
Yeah,
Okay,
that it's like either the cause object or the source subject,
gotcha. Let me.
either the master of all or the um, object, I guess, causing everything.
Just writing a note for myself. Hmm. All right. Yes. We can substitute one attachment with another but we cannot move from a state of attachment to that of detachment. This is what a father should tell his daughter. To understand the activity of subjects, their emotions, their passions, we must turn our attention to that which attaches and activates them. An obvious proposition, but one normally overlooked. The single slogan, quote, to live without a master, unquote, actually signifies two entirely different projects depending on whether one lives under the umbrage of factitious or remains torn between objects and subjects. Does liberty consist of living without a master or without mastery? The two projects are no more similar than fair and fair, or to do and to make do. The first project amounts to confounding the passage from one master to another with the passage from attachment to detachment. Yes. So the first project, that being living without a master.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So the first project amounts to confounding the passage from one master to another with the passage from attachment to detachment. Behind the desire for emancipation, quote, neither God nor master, unquote, lies the desire to substitute a good master for a bad one. Most often, it entails the replacement of the institution with the I/king. To adopt the expression of Pierre Legendre, to adopt the expression of Legendre. Okay, hold on. Let me reread that. Behind the desire for emancipation, neither God nor master, lies the desire to substitute a good master for a bad one. Most often, it entails the replacement of the institution with the I/king, quote unquote, to adopt the expression of Pierre Legendre. Even if we accept that this merely represents a substitution and not a definitive severing of ties, freedom continues to consist of replacing one form of mastery by another. But when will we be able to untie ourselves from the ideal of mastery itself? When will we begin finally to taste the fruits of liberty? That is, quote, to live without a master, unquote, particularly without an I/king. This is the second project that gives an entirely different meaning to the same slogan. We had confused freedom as the exercise of command in the place of another commander with freedom as life lived without command altogether. With factitious, the expression of freedom regains the path that the ideal of emancipation and detachment had transformed into an impasse. Freedom becomes the right not to be deprived of ties that render existence possible, ties emptied of all ideals of determination, of a false theology of creation ex nihilo. Hmm. Freedom becomes the right not to be deprived of ties that render existence possible, ties empty of all ideals of determination, of a false theology of creation ex nihilo.
God hovered over the waters of the earth.
Hmm.
Is I guess how in the creation story, the earth is without shape. It is not there.
Mm-hmm.
It is just simply the world is simply just not shaped. It is but it is still very much there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ties emptied all ideals of determination, of a false theology of creation ex nihilo. Yes. So to be clear, he when he's talking about ties that render existence possible and ties emptied of all ideals of determination, um he's saying that that the the ties that render existence possible are the ones that are emptied of all ideals of determination, and that these are the ties that we have a right to not to that we have a right not to be deprived of?
Yes.
Okay. Right. If it is correct that we must replace the ancient opposition between the attached and detached with the substitution of good and bad attachments, this replacement would leave us only feeling stifled if it were not supplemented and completed by a second idea, i.e., the deliverance from mastery altogether. At all points of the network of attachments, the node is that of make, not of a make nor of a made. At all points of the network of attachments, the node is that of a make, not of a make nor of a made.
There are not causes. There are not causes and effect. The things cause and effect is what he's getting at.
Okay. Causes and effects. Okay. So that at least is a different project of emancipation, which is as vigorous as the former, but much more credible, because it obliges us not to confuse living without control with living without attachments. Okay, so must replace the ancient opposition between attached and detached with the substitution of good and bad attachments. This replacement would leave us only feeling stifled if it were not supplemented and completed by a second idea, i.e., the deliverance from mastery altogether. So he wants, so the, what would be the deliverance from mastery? Is it, is it this, is the deliverance from mastery the acknowledgement of the make of the,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
All
It
right.
is it.
Mhm.
There are not things that cause and things that are passive and simply affected.
Mhm.
Things cause, and they are also. There's no.
Okay. I think I get that.
I guess there might be a better way to put that. That might be too simplified. That's how I'm going to say it.
Mhm.
That's the only way I'm saying it right. But that is probably what
Yeah.
it's like the double thing Latour does, where it's not really two things.
Mhm. Yes. So that at least is a different project of emancipation, and as such is as vigorous as the former, but much more critical because it obliges us not to confuse living out without control with living without attachments. So he's saying that attachments are things that are indispensable, but it is possible to live without control in the sense of mastery.
Yeah.
Okay. In the eyes of those who have broken the fair, the to do, the to do, um,
He says it in this. I remember to make do.
okay, to make
This
do.
is what he is what
Hmm.
is what I guess he ends up deciding in the translation.
Yes. In the eyes of those who have broken the fair, who have sundered the factish, cultures of the past or at a distance seem profoundly incomprehensible. With the opposed notions of determination and freedom, of heteronomy and autonomy. Now we could understand those forms of existence that claim, very simply, they could not exist without being continually intertwined with certain divinities or certain goods. Or, sorry, that's a question. How could we? Oh, it's how could we understand those forms of existence that claim, very simply, they could not exist without being continually intertwined with certain divinities or certain goods? And this is 74. The question concerning the attachment of properties is not any easier to resolve than that of divinities, and the key concept of externality does not suffice to end the discussion, despite its pretensions of achieving closure. See Michel Callan edition, The Laws of the Market. The arguments on the freedom of choice or the organization of the market rehearse exactly the same theories of inaction as those of the social sciences. Interesting. The arguments on the freedom of choice or the organization of the market rehearse exactly the same theories of inaction as those of the social sciences. Interesting. So is he trying to say here that like there's kind of like a fetish anti-fetish uh thing going on in debates about the market and like market regulation and that sort of thing? Is that what he's getting at here?
Not sure if it's exactly um, that, but what he's definitely getting at is that in debates, talking about the market, there is the caused, and there is the causer.
Hmm.
There is the cause. There's causer and there's the affected.
Right. Right. Okay. And yeah, and different economists have different views about what the causes and the effects are, and he wants to. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right. Where was I? Yes. The notion of fetish or fetishism emerges precisely from the shock encounter between those who utilize the term of necessity and freedom and those who know themselves to be fastened by numerous beings that make them exist. 75. This goes to 75. In addition to the summit reached by Pietz in Fetishism and Materialism, The Limits of Theory in Marx, see the dizzying analysis of Simon Schaeffer on the relation between history and scientific assessment of gold and the accusation of fetishism. Uh, Simon Schaeffer, Golden Means, Assay Instruments, and the Geography of Precision in the Guinea Trade. Interesting. Um, so in addition to the summit reached by Pietz in Fetishism and Materialism, The Limits of Theory in Marx, see the dizzying analysis of Simon Schaeffer on the relation between history and scientific assessment of gold and the accusation of fetishism. Okay. Hold on. I actually want to look this up. Um, hmm, hold on. Sorry, I'm looking. I'm looking what this says.
Real good.
Spencer combination has been a certain semiological of Marxian theory that impedes any fruitful engagement with Marx's writings. The notion of fetishism has figured. Um, hmm. Who is William Pietz? Hmm. Interesting. I don't really know much about Pietz. Um, it seems like it seems like the chapter being talked about is um it's basically I don't want to say sorry. It seems to be like a chapter on uh, post-structuralist readings of Marx, and is trying to um, what's the word? It's trying to counter them, or say that they're not proper readings of Marx proper. Hmm. I don't know. I would need to read this to see if I agree with it or not. Um, yeah, all right. I would need to read this. Anyway, um I will look into that later. Sorry that said that I went silent there for a little bit. I was just not sure I knew what that was.
No,
Um
you're all good.
yes. Yes, the notion of fetish or fetishism emerges precisely from the shock encounter between those who utilize the terms of necessity and freedom and those who know themselves to be fastened by numerous beings that make them exist. Interesting. So, this is actually necessity and freedom is something that this feels like an allusion to Hume, uh specifically, because Hume, um I believe, has like a chapter on this. Um, that basically, necessity and freedom is also can also be construed as like free will and determinism, right? Where it's either things are necessary or you are free. Um, and what Hume wants to say is that um, there can be no such thing as freedom in the way that it is often described, and that there is freedom in necessity itself. That there are ways of understanding necessity in such a way that you can get freedom out of it, freedom that is like valuable in and like actually something that we care about. Um, yeah, I don't know if that's a deliberate illusion, but that's what I get out of that.
There's a good chance it might be.
Hmm. Yes. And those who know themselves to be fastened by numerous beings that make them exist. Faced with the accusation cast by his daughter that he is totally dominated by his fetish, Mafalda's father has no choice than fanatically to destroy his idol, guaranteeing that he again not succumb. Sorry, not succumb to a fatal attachment. His frenetic reaction proves that he is modern, but portends nothing positive about his ability to understand those what? Ties. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. I For some reason I thought this was a continuation of another word, but no, it's just those ties. Yes. Pretends nothing positive about his ability to understand those ties that will make him and his daughter exist. We constantly deliberate to discern the meaning of those vague terms, the West and modernity. We can define them simply enough. The modern West has broken its factishes and sees others as bizarrely attached creatures, monsters, as much in the grip of their beliefs and their passivity as the father viewed by his daughter Mafalda. But it is the daughter who doesn't understand her father, the Westerner who doesn't understand the other, rendered exotic by contrast with an ideal of detachment that would surely kill if one were so mad as to actually apply it. And if we go to 76, as much could be said, or as much could be said about an internal quote unquote exoticism. An exoticism is the erecting of great divides, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as much could be said about an internal quote unquote exoticism invented by critical theory, in particular the Frankfurt School, which has transformed all European and American cultures into a manipulated mass, also bizarrely attached. Critical theory plays for the center the same role of exoticizing alterity as the conceptualization of the fetish performs for the periphery. Sorry, let me reread that. Critical theory plays for the center the same role of exoticizing alterity as the conceptualization of the fetish performs for the periphery. Okay. Okay. The center being the um like the imperial center, like the west or
Yeah.
whatever. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So as much could be said about an internal exoticism. Yeah. So this is not so what he's saying here is that you know, the moderns so called differentiate themselves from the periphery by the by their supposed by their belief in belief, um or rather by their belief when it is actually in fact belief in belief that the moderns have and that the peripheral peoples lack. But um it's not a solution to just make another internal exoticism, another internal great divide, um that uh that bifurcates this center between, you know, the culture, the base, or like the culture and the base, right? So
Yeah.
this is and in this sense he is against um like Frankfurt School critical theory would which would probably include like Horkheimer, Adorno, what's his face, Habermas, like those types. And I definitely understand what he's saying, right? Where it's like you know, they talk about cultural products as like ideology or whatever, and they're very much in the vein of saying that people um like I believe the chapter on the culture industry is like literally called enlightenment is mass deception or something, um which is not something
Yeah.
that like for Latour it's not what's happening, you know. It's not a mass deception, it's not a delusion. um
No.
okay.
It's not the delusion because he's a delusion. And he knows about the Wilhelm Reich thing.
Yes. But yes, culture industry enlightenment as mass deception. Yes, that's the name of the chapter. So yes, it makes sense that he would contravene like the critical theory reading of society as well, right? Um where was I?
The incapacity to recognize.
Yes. The incapacity to recognize in oneself those attachments that enable one to act is taken as reason to believe oneself Western and to imagine that the others are not, but who are consequently entirely other, when in fact they differ only by what precisely attaches them. Instead of a great divide between us and them, between the detached and the attached, we would be better off introducing a number of smaller divides between those who are attached by one such set of particular entities, and those attached by another such set of particular entities. The specific nature of the activating transfers makes all the difference, and not the astounding pretension of escaping all domination, whether by facts or by fetishes, by rationality or by irrationality. One gains alterity from attachments, not from the radical differences between the liberated and the alienated, the uprooted and the rooted, the mobile and the fixed. And this goes to 77. On this issue of a great divide, see Bruno Latour, We Have Never Been Modern. See also the important work accomplished by anthropologists on revising the categories of culture once one removes the obstacle posed by an opposing category of nature. Philippa de
You get
Scola.
fucking
Uh,
get fucking the skull again.
mhm.
I have to read him.
Yeah, I've
Read
never.
so much shit.
Yeah, yeah, that all makes sense. All class. So one gains alterity from attachments, not from the radical difference between the liberated and the alienated, the uprooted and the uprooted, and the rooted, the mobile and the fixed. Okay, yeah. So what he means by this is like it's not that we are actually uprooted, but uh that we have gained alterity from attachments through this uh I guess this treatment of all of the alterity as having as having this difference, or the erecting of this great divide, not because it is actually a great divide that um I don't want to say doesn't it's not one it's not one that exists, I guess, but um it's one that we I guess it's one that we prop up uh such that there is um a difference between us and them. But it's not, and crucially though, it's not. He's not saying that like the Great Divide is a fetish either, because we know what we're doing supposedly in the erecting of this Great Divide. It's deliberate. It's not. We're not being like tricked into it. Um.
The meaning of kind of the we we have never been modern.
Mhm,
Or says we've never been modern. Paul's people are clearly modern. It's because he's using very particular with how he's intending to word it.
mhm,
We've never been modern is a assessment of the past of the past, and in
mhm,
assessing this past differently, we have now changed. We have now really never been modern.
mhm,
Um, and that's kind of where he goes with it. It's a very particular thing.
mhm. Right. If we define politics as the progressive constitution of a common world, we can easily see how difficult it is to imagine a collective existence if all those who wished to participate were first asked to leave behind in the outside vestibule all the appurtenances, and attachments which enabled them to exist. Westerners, as the masters of ceremony, manage not to apply the rule of abstention and detachment, which they apply to the others, to themselves. Um, manage not to apply the rule of abstention and attachment. Yeah. So this is the, you know, decrying fetish while you are, uh, like covered in crosses, kind of thing. Um, The Westerners' attachments are summed up by the two great accumulators of their distinctive tradition, nature and society, the reign of necessity and that of freedom. Usage of the term globalization permits one to believe that the common world will necessarily be an extension, in one form or another, of one of these two reigns, um, those being nature and society.
Yeah,
um and the the contrasting of them here, or the parallelism between nature and society, and then necessity and freedom, isn't like he's trying to say that nature is configured as necessity and society is configured as freedom, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And also, it's important. Nature capitalized and
Hmm.
singular. Society is also capitalized. And it's also singular.
Right, because because the conception is that these are, yeah, because they're the two, they're just the object and subject pole again. The fetish anti fetish, the fact and the yeah, the fact and the fetish, the all of the other ones that I'm forgetting right now because it's late. But yes. Uh Usage of the term globalization permits one to believe that the common world will necessarily be an extension in one form or another of one of these two reigns. For the competing parties, the global framework of the discussion is not up for debate. Nothing proves, however, that the common world as the object of politics, or what Isabel Stengers calls cosmopolitics, resembles globalization. Sorry. Nothing proves, however, that the common world as the object of politics, or was what Isabel Stengers calls cosmopolitics, resembles globalization. So he's not saying he's saying that there is no proof to this idea that globalization, so called, is in fact uh, what is in fact actually the common world as the object of politics. It in fact might not be, and I'm guessing he's going to try to argue that it's not. But yeah, so okay, this is just referencing cosmopolitics. Everything.
Woo, this is Stego's reference.
Mhm. Been lots of those. Yeah.
This thing's good.
Everything proves, on the contrary, that the two accumulators, the causal determination of nature and the arbitrary arbitration of the sovereign, no longer suffice to find closure to controversies concerning the progressive constitution of the common world. In a world that no longer moves from alienation to emancipation. Sorry. In a
Yeah.
world that no longer moves from alienation to emancipation, but from entanglement to even greater entanglement, no longer from the pre-modern to the modern, but from the modern to the non-modern, the traditional division between determinations and liberations serve no useful purpose in defining a globalization whose complexity, for the moment, defies political understanding. Despite the automatic reaction of Mafalda's father, it is no longer a matter of abruptly passing from slavery to freedom by shattering idols, but of distinguishing those attachments that save from those that kill. And then this goes to 79. This is the object of the effort undertaken in Bruno Latour, Politics of Nature, how to bring hey, the politics of nature. I wonder, wouldn't it be great if somebody were covering that book?
Fuck. Yeah, that's so crazy. I forgot the politics of nature shows up in there.
No.
In here. That's
Mhm.
crazy.
The definition of a collective capable of assembling a common world without having recourse to the two traditional compendiums of nature and society, bicameralism, is ill adapted to the contemporary situation. And in Politics of Nature, he, oh my god, I forget, but he has like this table, and he basically turns the bicameralism 90 degrees, uh and separates out
Yeah, yeah.
into two different, so like he enumerates two things, two like components the of nature, and then two of society, and then says, and then divides them down the middle, or divides them vertically down the middle, and then says this new constitution of of collectives should be, um like the parliament of things, is like rotating at 90 degrees so that it's instead divided in the center. I don't remember what the four different things were, so I'm not going to
If I can
comment
find
super.
it. It's 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 taking into account and
Hmm.
arranging in rank order.
Right.
Which before it was the old bicameralism relied on the facts values distinction,
Hmm.
but but the new one doesn't rely on that.
Yes.
It instead relies on the distinction between taking into account and
Hmm.
putting and arranging in order.
Yeah, and taking into account means something like I don't know if interests is the right word, but like accounting for the interests of the parties to a given common world. Um
Yeah,
and that's not going to just be humans, right? It's going to be animals, it's going to be non-human, non-animals. It's going to be plants. I guess it could also be rocks even. Um but
anything.
yeah,
It's
anything.
it's literally anything. It could be fucking um uh the Earth.
Yeah.
It could literally be like something as broad as the Earth, or as like the change he makes it as Gaia.
Mhm.
He can make it as Gaia, as kind of the thing he wants to move to, instead of talking about the globe, the sphere, talking
Mhm.
about Gaia, the thingy face.
Yep. All right, and then from that we'll get the conclusion. The conclusion is quite long though. Well, it's not that long. Hmm.
It's not that long, but
I'm kind of done. My
yeah,
voice is giving out,
we
so
can, yeah, we can wait.
yeah.
I'm free Wednesday.
Okay.
Want to do something Wednesday? I don't know. I don't have my schedule for next week yet. I should hopefully have it tomorrow sometime. So if you can't do Wednesday, I'll tell you what days I can do. And because I forgot that the one of my favorite fucking parts,
Hmm.
another one of my favorite parts, I have many of in here, comes up in these in the conclusion and not in the last section.
Interesting. Okay. All right.
I love
Well,
this book. This is
mhm.
I hope you can tell.
Yes, I know. I'm
I
well.
hope you understand why. Sorry, what I actually meant to say was I hope you understand how I fell so deeply in love with Latour.
Hmm. No, I get it.
Just from this first paragraph.
No, it's quite. It is quite. It is quite like compelling. Um, like I've had my
It's
fair share of questions, but still, I'm very much enjoying the book, and it's given me a lot to think about. So yeah,
it's a movement.
if y'all want more, go to Envy's channel. She is covering the politics of nature right now, so you know,
I don't stream every day because I have work,
yeah. Well, I also don't stream every day.
and I work fucking late shift.
Hmm.
I really don't want to stream in the morning. I don't care to stream in the morning.
Yeah.
I'd rather stream once work is over. So.
The point is though, she does stream and she's covering this book. So if
And
you
I've
are
streamed a good
enjoying these
amount.
streams, you
So we
should
have it.
go check her out. Her thing should be in the thingy. It should be in the title. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I almost have 14 streams on it now.
damn, yeah, that's it's more than mine. I've only got 9. So anyway,
It's fucking been
um,
insane.
that will be all for tonight. I don't think it says I had is it's I had concurrent viewers throughout, but nobody chatted, so um whatever.
It's his
Uh
late.
no, it makes sense.
Pippa's asleep.
Why I guess
Most of the yeah.
no, it's fair. All right. Anyway, goodbye everybody.